All right, well, we're going to have to get started, and other people that will come in will have to come in a little bit late, or will be it tonight. So we never know. So we're going to begin with our prayer book, and I'm going to send a copy of this to Hatley. But meanwhile, we start with our opening prayers. So for tonight, we're going to recite we'll recite these one time each, and then when we get to the Refuge Prayers, we'll recite that twice. So if you don't mind, I'll lead that tonight. So all mothers, sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. And the next prayer is the Action Bodhicitta prayer. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. And the long refuge prayer. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. And we go to the next prayer is taking the Bodhisattva vow. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. And now we recite 3 times the short refuge prayer, do it twice in English, once in Tibet. So the short refuge prayer, I'll give a short explanation, is we're holding the 3 jewels in the palm of our hands. So we can take our thumbs and put that into the palms to represent the 3 jewels. The 3 jewels are the Buddha, which is the mind, the Dharma, which is the speech, and the Sangha, which is the body of the Buddha. So these 3 jewels are the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. These are the 3 jewels. So we take refuge in the 3 jewels, in the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. We recite this prayer. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In Tibet, Sangye Chodang Soki Chonamla Shangju Badu Dagni Kyabsuchi Dagi Jinsoki Pe Sonamgi Drola Penshir Sangye Jupasho. And now we recite the next prayer. It's the 4 immeasurables. These are the 4 vast immeasurables of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the Tibetan words, 2 words, bodhi and citta, which means the holy enlightened mind. So all the enlightened ones, all the Buddhas, all the bodhisattvas, all have the holy enlightened mind. And we have all the ingredients within ourselves to be able to do that. And what we're trying to do is to to move about, to transcend all the afflictions, all the emotions, all the confusions that we have that prevents us from recognizing this bodhicitta, this holy enlightened mind. So the holy enlightened mind has 4 qualities about it. First is loving kindness. The second is compassion. The third is joy. And the fourth is equanimity. So these are the 4 immeasurable, vast qualities of the holy enlightened mind, bodhicitta. So we remind ourselves of this each time that we recite this prayer. So we recite this twice in English, once in Tibet. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. In Tibet, Manam kadam yampe semchen tam she dewa dang dewe gurdang dempar jurchi. Dug now dang dunel gi gu dang drawar jurchi. Dug now me pe dewa dang mi drawar jurchi. Ne ring chak dang ni dang drawe dang namla ne pa jurchi. Okay, thank you. So those are our opening prayers for tonight. And these prayers are to set our motivation, our intention of what we want to do in this teaching, what we want to do in this practice, what we want to do in this study, in this contemplation, this meditation. Any of these endeavors that we embark in, first we want to set our motivation. We want to set the motivation to take refuge in the 3 jewels, and we want to set our motivation in bodhicitta. So all these prayers are supporting our aspirations to do that. So we'll give more explanation on these prayers as we move along, but for tonight, unless anybody has any questions, that'll suffice for tonight. Okay. Yes, Hatley, yes. Turn your microphone on, please.
I got for bodhicitta, loving kindness, loving compassion, something, and joy. What did I miss?
First one is loving kindness. The second one is compassion.
Okay.
The third one is joy, and particularly empathetic joy. And the fourth one is equanimity.
Okay, that's the one I missed. Thank you.
All right, we'll talk more about those as we move along. So, as I said, we're going to restart our cycle, either next month or August or maybe even September. And we're going to go back through a very fundamental, basic 101 cycle of teachings.
Sorry, everyone, for taking up your time with that question. I hope you don't mind.
No, it's fine. Please.
Okay, thank you very much. When you have a question
like that, we're happy to answer it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. Good evening, Zara. Good to see you. Are you driving?
I'm traveling right now, but I have you on. Through my phone tonight right now.
All right. Well, very good. Well, drive carefully and don't let your eyes wander from the road.
Thank you, man.
Okay. Keep the white line stays to the left. Okay. All right, so we've been talking about the 9 yanas. So a yana is a Sanskrit word that means vehicle. So in the broadest sense of Tibetan Buddhism, there are 9 vehicles in which we can use to be able to attain enlightenment, to attain Buddhahood. And these are progressive vehicles. It's possible that someone may have the karma to be able to use any one of these vehicles and attain Buddhahood. But for the rest of us, it's something that we look at as a progressive path. So we've talked about the first part was the path of renunciation. So we talked about that. And that was including the Shravaka path, or the hearer path, and also included the Pratyeka Buddha path, the solitary realizer, and also included the Bodhisattva path, the Bodhisattva yana path, of the Mahayana path, was included in the path of renunciation, of being able to discipline our lives, to discipline our mind, discipline our lives in such a way that we're not being distracted, pulled away by many mundane things, confusing things, emotional things, and so on like that. So we need to apply this path of renunciation, of saying we're going to discipline ourselves with a better control of ourselves, of our environment, and so on. So through those 3 is what we've been talking about up to this point. So tonight we're going to start talking about the next path, which is the path of purification. What we do once we have now established some degree of discipline in our lives, now we can embark on purification of those defilements, of those confusions, and so on. After the path of purification, just to give you a context of where we are, after the path of purification will be the path of transformation, where now we can apply the discipline, apply the purification, and now we can actually go through the transformation of who we are as individuals, ourselves, and transform ourselves into more holy beings, into more beings with bodhicitta, where our bodhicitta is more strong. So that would be the path of transformation. And then the 4th path would be the path of liberation, the path of self-liberation, where we are able to then more or less perfect ourselves to the point of enlightenment. So those are the 4 paths. And then, so now in this path of purification, coming back to this path of purification, there are two yanas, there are 2 vehicles in this path. There's the outer path, the outer vehicle, and there's the inner vehicle. So the outer vehicle is called the yana of the Kriya Tantra. Kriya is spelled Kriya, the Kriya Tantra. And the inner is the yana of the Choya Tantra. So Choya is Charya. So a little bit of background. The sutras are the actual teachings of the Buddha and the masters that succeeded the Buddha. So these are their literal teachings. So it's much like the Gospels that we might refer to in the Western, in the Western Bible and so on. The Gospels being the word of Jesus. So the sutras are those words of the Buddha and the great masters that followed him. The Tantra is the actualizations of the methods that is being expressed in the sutras. So it's like it's the compassion of the wisdom of the Buddha that's being expressed as the sutras, then that actualization of that, not just saying, here's how you do it, but actually doing it, the actualization of it. This is the tantric path, actually engaging in these activities. This is Tantra. So Tantrayana, the Tantra vehicle, is this actualizing vehicle where we transform ourselves to become a holy enlightened being. So for us to understand this, and if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. To understand this, we have to come back and look at these three kayas, these three bodies of the Buddha, the kayas. We talked about the yanas as vehicles. The kayas, K-A-Y-A-S, are the bodies. So the bodies of the Buddha, there's a physical body, there's an intellectual body or a speech body, and there is a mind body, a spiritual body. So these three bodies. So these three bodies can be described as the Dharmakaya is the mind body. The Sambhogagaya is the intellectual body. And the Nirmanakaya is the emanation body, is the physical body of the Buddha. So we go over this many times. For most of us, this is a review. So we can't spend a whole lot of time going through the detail of this, but just to be able to help you with your notes and making a context out of this. So now there's another way of explaining these three kayas that is relevant to the conversation that we're about to have with this purification and so on. So we talk about that in our normal state, in this waking state, in this state of physicality, we are in a desire realm. We are in a desire body. And we are also in a form body. So this Nirmanakaya state is a desire state and is a form state. Now, when that state is the Buddha, then he is a pure example of what that is. We are impure, who are trying to get on the path of purification. So we look at ourselves as an impure body who has desire and who has this form body. So this is called the Kama Kaya, or Kama, well, let's, for the sake of simplicity, let's call it the Karma Kaya. So Kama, K-A-M-A, Kaya, K-A-Y-A. So it's the field of being an ordinary human being in this ordinary life. Then the next level is called the Rupa Kaya, R-U-P-A, Rupa Kaya, which now is referring to the form body, because this is the Sambhogakaya. This is the intellectual. And in the intellectual is all this iconography, all these references to all these ritual objects and so on that we use to help us to kind of focus on what it is that we're trying to do. So we're using all these ritual objects as symbols, as tools to be able to aid us, to direct us in a spiritual direction, away from an ordinary mundane direction that we're coming from. So we're in this intellectual realm now, and we're contemplating this, and we go through practices to be able to identify all these different symbolic things and so on. So all these forms. So it is a form body, but it is a desireless body. Because once entering into the Rupakaya, the desire has been eliminated through our discipline, through our renunciation. Now, we may not be 100% successful in this, but the endeavor is to be there. And into those beings who are able to accomplish the Sambhogaya, this enjoyment body, this intellectual, subtle enjoyment body, those who are completely stable in it are in this enjoyable state and have a form body, but yet desireless. So then, when we're able to go beyond that, then we go to the Arupa Kaya. So it's spelled A-R-U-P-A, Kaya, K-A-Y-A, Arupa Kaya. So this would be the truth body. This would be the same as the Dharmakaya, the Dharma body of the Buddha, the mind body of the Buddha. And in this body, this is completely free of the body, of the physical body, of form, and also desire. So it's formless and it's desireless. So now these three kayas are being defined in terms of form and desire. So this should be a reference point that we can come back to through many, many other studies that we do and look at this. And just to put one more fine point on this, is the Dharmakaya, or the Arupakaya, the formless, desireless body, is pure, perfectly pure. It is the mind of the Buddha. So pure, it is not incarnate. It has not become tarnished in any way. And in order for that formless, desireless Dharmakaya to be understood, it manifests in the Sambhogakaya and in the Nirmanakaya, or the Rupakaya and the Kamakaya. So it's doing that for our benefit. Because if we try to approach the mind of the Buddha without these aids, without this help, it would be very, very difficult for us. It would take a very evolved person to be able to do that. So the Buddha manifested in a form and taught the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, and the Sambhogakaya, the symbology of the Sambhogakaya, so that we could understand and be able to approach the Dharmakaya, the mind of the Buddha. So as we practice, as we study, as we contemplate, as we meditate, we may have glimpses of that Dharmakaya, just a brief glimpse. And it may be very unstable. It just goes as fast as it can. But that glimpse can be something that we can recognize as being what it is that we're trying to understand. This non-conceptual state, if I can use that word, that is the absolute truth. So So through this glimpse after glimpse after glimpse that we go through our receiving teachings, through our studying, through our practices, through our contemplations, and through our meditations, we can have glimpse after glimpse of that non-conceptual state, of that Dharmakaya, and we begin to kind of piece it together. It's like puzzles, pieces of a puzzle that start fitting in together, and we start seeing how they come, and then we start understanding that this is our true nature. This is who we are. We are Buddha. We are all Buddha. Buddha is awakening, so that we are all human beings who have the potential to be awakened. Tom, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, the Dharmakaya. That was what form body was that? That was the
whatever form body we wish to take, or whichever form body we're discussing or focusing upon. But it would be a real form body. It would be you or me, or if Buddha Shakyamuni was here, it would be Buddha Shakyamuni.
That was a Dharmakaya.
That's Dharmakaya. Mm-hmm. So that is the emanation body that can take any form, but in particular a human form. The highest form it could take that we can relate to would be a human form.
Thank you.
Okay. So does that make sense? So there's the form body, which is the physical. There's the intellectual body, which would be a form, but it's desireless. So those forms are mental formations, but we can use illustrations and so on. So all the ritual objects. And then with the Dharmakaya or the Arupakaya, there's no need for any of that. As a matter of fact, those things can confuse us. Okay, so we need to establish this foundation to be able to continue our talk. Okay, so now we're coming to the Kriya Tantra, this next part of this is the outer yana of purification. So this outer part is what we are aspiring to become Buddha. So we start looking at these practices that are deity yoga practices. The deities are within ourselves. So I always use the illustration that within ourselves in our heart center is this diamond nature, this amidantine nature, this diamond nature. And as a diamond, it has many, many, many different facets. But if you look inside of any one of these facets, you're all seeing the same thing within those facets. So the diamond itself is the mind of the Buddha. But these facets then would be these aspects of the Buddha, and each one of these aspects would have a particular name and a particular activity. So this helps us to understand that there is this Buddha nature that encompasses all these other facets that's all within us. And we don't recognize it because it's all blocked up with our obscurations, with our afflictive emotions, with our preconceived ideas and concepts and so on, our misconceptions of wisdom. So what we're trying to do is to remove those blockages, remove those obscurations, and as we do, then light from the diamond comes out by way of the different activities that we engage in to recognize those particular facets, those facets of the Buddha nature that is within ourselves. Is this making some sense? Am I getting too far out there? Okay. So this deity yoga deity is recognizing all these aspects as deities, but they're not deities that we might think of that are external when we talk about the celestial gods and so on like that. It's not deities like that. These are deities that are within ourselves. And we become in union. We see that we are actually inseparable from those deities, that they are expressions of ourselves. That's what we're trying to recognize. That's what we're trying to see. So deity yoga, yoga means union in Sanskrit. So the deity yoga is being in union with those multiple aspects of our true nature. So through the practices, we become familiar with that. Meditation, the word meditation in Tibetan is gom, G-O-M. And that word means familiarization, that we are becoming familiar with our true nature. So in this sense now, this is the outer awareness, this is the outer opening, the outer familiarization with this deity yoga, with this path of purification. So first, we have to identify, well, who are these deities? And what do they represent? So we can talk about green Tara. We could talk about white Tara. We could talk about Vajrasattva. We could talk about Sangye Menla, Medicine Buddha. We could talk about Avalokiteshvara, Shenrezig, all these different names that you might have heard at one time or another, but there's many, 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 many more. But they each have a specific activity, enlightened activity in which they are symbolic of. So for instance, green Tara is fearlessness. White Tara is liberation. Medicine Buddha is healing. Avalokiteshvara, Shenrezig, is compassion. Manjushri is wisdom. So there's many, many different activities, and there's many, many different Buddhas who are symbolic of those activities. And this is all the system that we have to be able to intellectualize this, to be able to understand this. We only need one of these things. But because of our nature as human beings, it's very difficult for us to really develop this one-pointed mindfulness just on one thing, just by being told so the first time. We have to explore. We're very curious. We're always looking at different things. We always think that we can do many things at one time very successfully and so on. So we go on all these forays to be able to acquire as much knowledge and understanding as we possibly can, which very often leads us to confusion and discursive thought. We can't focus, So, okay, so we have a system by which we can stay spiritual, but focused on our spirituality through all these deities and see them as different activities. And then that then helps us to then maybe we say that we're going to stay with one or two or three of these particular deities and focus on these deities without getting in all the other ones that can lead us into more confusion and unnecessary confusion and so on. So ultimately, we want to develop one-pointed mindfulness. So any one of these deities can help us to do that. It's up to us to be able to recognize what's pulling us away and what we need to utilize to be able to help us to focus and so on. So first, we're trying to work on our outer defilements, our more gross defilements, and we're looking at the outer the outer characteristics of these particular deities to help us to do that. So what they physically look like, how they're sitting, what they're holding in their hands, what their body color is, who is associated with them, what their family is like, and so on, their retinue. So these are all outer characteristics of those deities within ourselves to help us to overcome our outer defilements. So as we get closer in, we need to fine-tune things a little bit more. So then we would go to the next level of deity, and we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. We'll get to that in a few minutes. So one of the things that is very important, and I guess you could say unique to the type of Buddhism that we practice, which is called Vajrayana practice. So here's another name for a vehicle, the Vajrayana. This Vajrayana is the indestructible wisdom vehicle. So this is the broad term that is used to describe this, this path of purification, this path of transformation, this path of self-liberation. Is all within this Vajrayana path. So one of the things that is special about this Vajrayana are the deity yogas, are the deity yoga practices. And the second thing is the empowerment to be able to perform those practices. Because those practices, they have a power about them. It's not like lightning is going to come out of our fingertips. It's not like fire is going to come out of our eyeballs and out of our mouths, or smoke come out of our ears. It's not like that. But it's powerful in the way that it is transformative in our perception of who we are and what we are, and what we're capable of doing as fully complete human beings, and so on. So these practices will help us to be able to master that power. If we don't do this properly, we can do damage to ourselves and we can do damage to others. How do we do that? We do that because we can discourage ourselves and we can discourage others. If you get a little bit of knowledge and you don't totally understand it, and you feel that you're trying to practice it, you're trying to understand it, and you're not getting the support that you need from it, then you might get discouraged. And then you might get so discouraged that you give up on the Dharma teachings and you begin to disparage the whole Buddhist ideology and so on. And so that has a very negative effect on you and has a negative effect on anybody who this lands on. If you go and you're trying to teach somebody, you're trying to instruct somebody on some of these points, you're trying to empower them to do these practices and so on, when you yourself have not become stable in these things, then you're giving them bad information. You're giving them incomplete information and skills to be able to do it. And then they can do harm to themselves in the same way and harm others. So it can have this ripple effect and so on. So it's not good to be able to do that. You always want to be able to be stable. You want to understand what you're doing. You want to be able to take responsibility for what it is that you are doing in regard to yourself and in regard to other people. So we say that if you don't do this, you're putting yourself and others in danger of ruining their karmic connection with the Dharma. So the Dharma is a very precious thing to us. And I think anyone who recognizes whatever tradition they're coming from, when they learn the essence of that particular tradition and so on, they can see where it may have been corrupted, but they also can see where the essence of the truth of what that essence is there, and they can see a difference between that. So it's not anything that is unique to Buddhism. Buddhism does not profess to be a unique and the only way to attain this liberation, this enlightenment, this what we call Buddhahood. Christ has it, the Jews have it, the Hindus have it, the Islamics have it, all beings have it, the Taoists have it, all beings have these traditions that are there. Buddhism is just one path to be able to do it. So, what I'm leading up to here is this empowerment, that the empowerment is like an initiation. And the initiation needs to be transmitted to you through a qualified master. And the master is going to, will have successfully completed some serious training and will be recognized by his peers or her peers as having successfully done that, and is thereby enthroned and enabled to be able to give these empowerments and associated teachings and so on. So the empowerments have three elements to them. They're called the three kindnesses of the Llama, or the Vajra master, the indestructible master. So one is that they will bestow the instructions of what the empowerment is, what the deity is. They will give the visualization of what that deity is, of what that empowerment is, and what's all involved in it. They will bestow refuge in all of that. And they will give a transmission of that in its purest sense, in its purest way, because as I'm talking to you, I can't help but I'm embellishing, I'm elaborating, I'm putting in some words that make me think that I'm doing a better job at communicating to you, hopeful that you're able to receive it and to be able to see through those things that I maybe didn't need to say. But nevertheless, my intention is pure. Regardless of what I say, my heart intention is pure. And if I could, I would give it to you in the purest sense that I possibly could through reciting these ancient empowerment practices, these instructions. Yes, Gary.
So taking empowerment it also includes taking refuge, is what you're saying.
Yes, it's an integral part of it.
Okay.
It may be a one-day refuge, but yes, it is an integral part of taking an empowerment.
Because I know of refuge for 3 years, 1 year, 3 weeks. I've heard, excuse me, different references to the word refuge, and I just wanted a little.
Right. Well, when you take refuge with the Llama, you're taking refuge with the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And that is like for life. It shouldn't be done lightly. That you're entering into the path, you're choosing to do that. And the Llama is taking a snippet of your hair and keeps it with them, and they do prayers over this bag of hair that of all the people that they have bestowed the refuge upon. but you are taking refuge with the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, or in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, you're not taking refuge in the Llama, in the master who is giving you that. But then the Llama is also giving you a Dharma name and is giving you instructions on how to continue in a very simple daily practice to help you to stabilize your refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, in those three jewels. So that's part of the refuge ceremony. That would be, when we say, have you taken refuge? What's your Dharma name? And so on like that. But then if you're sitting in an empowerment, you haven't taken refuge already, that part of the prayers that you take, you're taking a 1 day instantaneous kind of a refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha for the sake of receiving this teaching. Now, if you don't understand this part about taking refuge, then I would say you really need to understand more about what taking refuge is, and it behooves you to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So,
Thank you.
okay, so we're receiving a heart transmission from the Buddha, from the Dharma master, from the Vajra master, who is bestowing this empowerment. And they recite the whole entire practice to you and to all the people who are in the group at the same time. He's reciting it very loud, very, very fast from his mouth, from his brain as he reads this, and he's sending it out. But he's also sending it out from his heart to your heart. And that's the heart transmission. And that's the important part. That's the most important part, is receiving that heart transmission. You may not recognize it in the beginning, but if you choose to become more and more integrated into this way of life, you will see how, like those puzzle pieces, all these things begin to connect, and you will see that all this power is all coming together and so on. So you get this integral union with all of these things happening. So he's giving you the empowerment, he's giving you the visualization, he's giving you the instructions of how to carry on with this daily practice. So these are the three kindnesses of the Llama: the empowerment, the instructions, and the heart transmission. So this empowerment is, as I said, an integral part of this. And this is one of the things that is part of what the Vajrayana, of what Tibetan Buddhism is. Tibetan Buddhism is Vajrayana, is the indestructible wisdom path of Buddhism. So we could say that this empowerment is an authorization to do practice. We could say that it is an initiation to do these practices. We could say that it is an introduction. And we could say that it is an activation of all these things, of all, of these practices and so on. So the more that we do it, the more we see how these different words all come into play, and how they work within ourselves, within our mind, our intellectual mind, and within our heart mind, and how those two working together improve our physical body, how we become healthier, we become more careful about taking care of our body and doing things that make sense to us, and keeping ourselves away from from harm, not putting ourselves in danger of hurting ourselves in any way, shape, or form. So we see that we have these three bodies, and through this empowerment, we begin to really recognize the spiritual body, because this is what the spiritual master is talking to, is relating to. And like I said, it's subtle. We may not recognize it right away, but after a period of time of receiving these kinds of empowerments and then practicing these empowerments and so on, you begin to recognize, oh, this is all part of all of that. And you begin to see that you do have this spiritual body. So all this is within Kriya Tantra, this Kriya, this outer conduct, this outer visualization of who we are in essence, this true nature, this Buddha nature of who we are and so on. So we take these vows, in order to do this. We don't want to, we're taking a liberation vow that we want to liberate ourselves. We want to be able to liberate others. We take a vow not to kill our father or mother, an arhat, another holy person on the path. We do not want to harm the temple in any way, or any of the artifacts, anything that is part of the facility of what we consider to be, an expression of the Buddha itself and so on. We don't want to engage in sexual misconduct. We don't want to force ourselves on anyone who doesn't want to be forced upon. I mean, that leaves a terrible scar that can last for the rest of their lives, and something that can be suppressed and so on. It's insidious, and so it's a very important part of the vows that we take. So in this outer part here, in this outer purification part, we take an empowerment. It's called a ripening empowerment. The general term for this is a ripening empowerment that allows us to ripen the karma that we bring with us, be it good karma or bad karma. Or we can say easy karma and difficult karma. Because we want both to come up. We want both to ripen. If we don't, it's easy for us to say we want the easy karma to come up, the enjoyable karma, the good karma. We want that to come up. Oh, I did good things. I helped this lady across the street with her bag of groceries. And boy, that's been sustaining my life for the past 2 lifetimes, that I did that. So we developed this pridefulness and so on, because of that. But there's something where, we ignored that lady. And as a matter of fact, we pushed her down and took her bag and ran off with her groceries. So we've got that karma to deal with. But we want that karma to come up so that we can deal with it. As long as we keep it suppressed, it's only going to come up some other time. And it's better that it comes up in its own time, that it ripens when the causes and conditions are all right, all ripe for it to ripen. So it's like if you took an apple and you buried it in the ground and you expect an apple tree to come out of it, but you've got to do certain things to be able to make those causes and conditions. You've got to make sure that there's no weeds around. You got to make sure that it's in the proper nutritious soil. You got to make sure that it gets the proper water. You got to make sure that it gets the proper sunlight. And you got to make sure that it's got the proper room for this seedling to grow. So we need to be able to recognize that we need to be able to take responsibility for this ripening, be it difficult ripening or good ripening. And And both of these things, what we're trying to do is to neutralize them. Because at the core of what we're trying to do is to develop and stabilize selflessness. Selflessness. No ego. No ego that is taking control of us. We have to take control of the ego. We can't annihilate the ego, but we can give the ego a job where our heart mind is in control. Remember, I said the Dharmakaya, the mind of the Buddha, then manifests in the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya. So the boss is our big mind, is our true mind, is our Buddha mind. That's the boss. And then the Nirmanakaya, or rather the Sambhogakaya, the intellectual mind, and the physical body are servants to that big mind. So this ripening empowerment is the empowerment that we would receive in the stage of this Kriya Yoga, this outer yoga, this outer tantra. So we might receive it in the sense of these deities, to recognize the defilements that those particular deities work on. And we're going to talk a lot about this when we get into the next cycle of Buddhism 101, what those things are. What are the causes of our emotions? What are the poisons that cause all this difficulty in our lives and so on, all this confusion? So we're going to look at that. So we need to understand that. And in this stage, in this Kriya Yoga, that's the level at which we're working. Okay. Any questions or comment? Do we need to take a short break? You want to stand up and stretch? Anybody need a drink of water or anything? You doing okay? Okay. All right, so now we need to get to the view. What is the view of this practitioner who is in this Kriya Yoga? What is their view? What are they looking at? What are they thinking about? What is their view? So it is the view of the absolute and the relative, of being able to recognize that there is this relative phenomenal nature in which we live, where everything is temporary and everything is compounded. And we go into a lot of detail on this in 101. But the view is that there is this relative truth, while at the same time, there is this absolute truth of purity, this absolute truth of that all of this is empty of its own true nature. That there is this phenomenal nature, that it's true, but the absolute truth of it is that it doesn't really exist, and that it's empty of its own nature. It really comes down to that. There's books, many, many, many books that are written about these topics. So for me to say this in one sentence is really crazy, but nevertheless, we don't have time to go into a lot of detail about it, but the view are these two truths. The truth of the relative, the temporary, and the truth of the emptiness of that phenomenal nature. So we'll come back to that. Now, how do we deal with this? How do we approach this? Do we just sit back and, well, let me think about this? Do we watch a movie about it? Do we come to the teachings and take in the teachings or read a book? How do we approach this? So all these things can be part of that approach. if they're wholesome things that we're engaging in, teachings, and maybe there are movies, there are films that we can see and so on. And there are many, many, many books that help us and so on to do that and everything. But we need to be able to bring that all together and to develop this one-pointed mindfulness on concentrating our brain to be able to focus on our big mind. So the little mind, which is jumping around incessantly, we need to be able to bring that down so that it can come into our heart center, so to speak. So we say, so to help us to do that, we need to develop a way in which we can first control our physical body. Because if our body isn't stable and we're moving around in our chair, we're sitting in an uncomfortable spot or something like that, it's too hot, it's too cold, the TV's on, all these kinds of things. So we need to develop a system by which we can begin to discipline our body. So this is the 7-point meditation posture of the Buddha Varanchana. So it's a long way of saying sitting in the correct posture. So there's 7 points, and I'm going to go through this quickly. Most of you have heard this. And, we're sitting with our legs crossed. We're sitting on a cushion on the floor, whatever's comfortable for you. If you can't sit in the cross-legged position, many people can't, you should sit on a chair, on a firm chair, not a cushy kind of a chair, maybe a thin cushion, but not a deeply upholstered sofa or something like that. And you should sit on the edge of it so that your butt is just on the edge of that cushion, whether you're on the floor or you're on the chair. And your back is straight. You're keeping your back straight, which is the most important element of the 7-point posture. Your back remains straight. And then your hands should be 4 inches below your navel with your left hand up and your right hand lying in your left and your thumbs touching. This is the classic meditation position at your navel, 4 inches below your navel. You can keep them at your knees if that's more comfortable for you. You can move them about if that's more comfortable for you. None of this should be so rigid that you feel like you can't move. If something's falling asleep, something's giving you pain, please move, do what you need to do to relieve your discomfort and get back to your contemplation, get back to your meditation. So you don't have to power through pain. So now, if you pull your shoulders back, and your shoulders are relaxed, they're not up around your ears, but they're relaxed naturally, and you pull them back so your chest comes out a little bit. You're not trying to make it rigid, you're not trying to make it tight, but when you do that, it automatically pulls your hands into your navel. So that's part of the 7 positions, the 7-point posture. Your shoulders are back, your hands come into your navel, your back is straight, your legs are crossed. And now your neck is comfortable. Maybe it's just a little bit relaxed, it's a little bit forward, so that the face, so that your head is, the chin is just tucked in a little bit. So the visualization here is that your face is like a horse. It's long like a horse, whether it's a stallion or a mare, a beautiful horse though, where, it's got this long face and its eyes are up here and it's kind of looking down, along the path of the nose, so to speak. So we're doing the same thing and we're looking out about 3 or 4 feet, 5 feet in front of us on the floor or whatever, not looking at anything specific. It's just more like a gaze. And in the beginning, it's better to keep your eyes closed so that you don't have any distractions. But during the meditation, you may want to open your eyes, and you can, but it should be in this manner, that it's a relaxed position. It's just the gaze. And so your eyes are part of this 7-point posture. And then the last thing is your mouth should be closed. There's a couple different ways of doing this. Different practices have different ways to do it. But in the beginning, we're going to learn it like this. We're breathing through both nostrils. The mouth is closed. The tongue is up on the roof of the mouth behind the front teeth. And this will keep your mouth moist. Even if you open your mouth without thinking about it, you open up your mouth and you begin to move through your mouth, breathe through your mouth, it tends to dry it out. But if your tongue is up on the roof of your mouth like that, it will prevent it, it will keep saliva in your mouth naturally. But we want to breathe in through both nostrils, and we want the breath to come down all the way down to our navel, down to where our two hands are at our navel, below our navel. And we hold that breath. And then when we exhale, we are squeezing our abdomen and pushing out that stale negative air out through both nostrils again. So we breathe in through both nostrils. We expand the belly. We expand the abdomen, which opens up the diaphragm, pulls down the diaphragm that pulls open the lungs, and it sucks the air into our lungs, fresh, clean, pure air coming in. And we hold that breath. And we hold it for a moment, and then we exhale, and we squeeze the abdomen. It pushes against the diaphragm, it pushes against the lungs, and pushes out all that stale, negative, dark air. And then we hold that empty breath like that. And then we continue doing that through our visualization of watching the breath. So we use that as a technique for our meditation. So we'll come back to that another time, but the 7-point posture is what's important. Legs are crossed, back is straight, hands at the navel, shoulder is back, head is down, face is down, chin is down, neck is bent just a little bit forward. Eyes are open or closed, but in a gaze. And the tongue is at the roof of the mouth. Those are the 7 points. So it should become second nature to you after some period of time that this is the way we do this. So what this does, it stabilizes and rests the body. You're not going to fall over. You're not going to cramp or anything like that. If you're seated properly, the key is to sit on your, what we call the sit bones of your pelvis. And it's the two lowest parts of your pelvis. There's like these two bones, that whole plate. And if you put your weight on those sit bones on the cushion, then it won't press against the fleshy part of your thighs. And it's when you do that, when you press against the fleshy part of your thighs, that it cuts off the circulation to your legs and they fall asleep or they get cramped and so on like that. So it's a little simple thing like sitting on the sit bones that makes a big difference. So it takes a little bit of time, trial and error to find all these, the proper comfortable combination of things. But when you do, now the body is neutralized. And now our energy can be used for the sake of our meditation, for our contemplation, and so on. So this is part of the meditation, how we are dealing with the body. We'll deal with the mind when we come to the next part. So our conduct at this point, now we are this practitioner, we're this Kriya Yoga practitioner. And we are purifying, and we are aware of fire as a purification. We're aware of wind as a purification. We're aware of water and earth as a purification of things. So if you set up an altar at some time, you want to do that. We have the bowls that we do, and we recite a mantra, a short mantra, to remind us of this purification ritual that we are doing. And these rituals are just mindfulness techniques to help us to get into the groove of one-pointed mindfulness and know that we are focused on our spirituality and that everything has a purpose for each other. They're all interconnected and so on. So the result of this is we become a knowledge holder. All of this, we become a knowledge holder. This is what we call a desire realm knowledge holder. We're in the form body, we're in the desire realm, and we become a knowledge holder in this realm as a human being, as an ordinary human being. And that's okay. And we become introduced to the 5 Buddha families, to the different Buddha families. And again, the mind of the Buddha is non-conceptual. But in order for that conceptuality or that non-conceptuality to be approached, we need to approach it from a conceptual point of view because we are human beings. We have to be practical about this. You just can't plug in and all of a sudden get it. It doesn't work like that. You got to work from the bottom up to get to it. So the Buddhas come to be able to show us the way to do that. So in order to do that is this Sambhogagaya, is this intellectualization of this process. And so these Buddha families become utilized to be able to do that. So we become a knowledge holder of that. So this is all part of the outer jhana of purification. Any questions or comments? I bet those of you who have engaged in any of these practices didn't know that you were doing all that, did you? I'm taking a drink of water. Does anybody need anything? You want to stand up and stretch?
I had a question now, Lance. When we're receiving these particular empowerments, is there a certain mindset we should have?
Absolutely. The first thing is that the Vajra master is the Buddha. Without faith in that, you know, you're going against the tide.
Hmm.
So you got to have faith that you are part of something that is like a key that fits into a lock that opens up our life. And then whatever it is that that Vajra master is teaching, whatever that particular empowerment is, to follow those instructions and to do it with as much of your recognition of your intellect, but of what is happening within your heart center. And again, the more that we do these, take these, the more that we are able to receive it within our heart, and then the brain just catches up with it very naturally. But if we don't catch it up here, if we don't just relax with this, then this is taking over, and this is fighting all the time. You ever been sitting in an empowerment or sitting in a teaching? You say, "What are you doing here? I can't understand this guy with an accent. What's he talking about? I don't understand half of these words I'm reciting. Why am I doing this? I could be out playing with my kids. I could be out, you know, having fun, whatever that might be." So I'm sure at one time or another, we've all had those kinds of thoughts, you know, but being able to control ourselves, to apply that discipline, that renunciation in the beginning. And the more that we do it, the more that we recognize how this is working for us. So again, we will go over this in greater detail in the next cycle 101. What it is to build that trust and that faith in what it is that we're doing. Excuse me.
Thank you so much, Lance.
Well, you're welcome. Okay, so now we move to the next of the two yanas of the Tantra of the path of purification. So now we go to the inner part. So in the inner part, now we are working on the subtle defilements. The subtle defilements are more of our internal thoughts, those things that are pulling us away, those things of our ego, those things of saying, oh, I've got this. Oh, I don't need that. Or all these, what we call discursive thoughts. Discursive is an interesting word. I had to look it up to really understand it, because I thought discursive means any kind of a disparaging, or not disparaging, but any kind of a thought that comes into your mind. In other words, we may be talking about Buddhism here, but then all of a sudden you start thinking about, well, I got to go out and I got to build a birdhouse or something like that. A whole different, discipline with different tools and all this kind of stuff. That's not discursive thought. That's completely separate thought from another mundane approach and so on. Discursive thought is about a particular topic, but looking at all the different permutations of what that can be. So we're talking about Buddhism here, and we're trying to process all this and thinking, well, it's maybe this, and I'm trying to fit all these pieces, and all that's discursive thought. What we want to be able to do is stop that discursive thought and just bring it down to one thing at a time. So if it's looking at that picture of the Buddha, of that deity, if it's looking at a ritual object like this, or it's using your mala beads and it's doing your mantra or something like that. These are all techniques of being able to control discursive thought. It may be related to the topic, but at the same time, it's still a lot of monkey mind going around about that particular topic that doesn't allow you to focus one pointedly on it. So we want to be able to stop discursive thought, to control discursive thought. So in the Charya Tantra, this inner conduct of the practitioner in this next part here is what we're working on here. So this is the elaboration part. This is the elaboration part, where now we start looking at the meaning of things, why we are doing things. Before, we're looking at the what. What should I be thinking about? What am I supposed to be doing? What text should I have? What pictures should I have? What statues should I have? Now we're looking at the why we should have this. So this is the elaboration and understanding through intellectual process about what that is. So it is defeating, or it's overcoming, or it's harnessing discursive thought through a process of asking questions and answering those questions. And then having those answers at your on the tip of your tongue, so to speak, so that you don't have to keep repeating them over and over again. So it means applying what you do learn and being able to have a catalog of terms, of understandings that you can refer back to. we can forget things. We haven't studied this in a year. I forgot about those parts and so on like that. But we need to have a way that we can get back to that. And then maybe after 2 or 3 years, if all we're doing it is once a year, then yeah, maybe it's going to take 3 or 4 or 5 years for us to be able to really nail that down. But there are some things that we go through, it seems like every week. There are some things we go through, I know, that are every couple of weeks or once a month. There are things that we go through every 2 or 3 months. And those things, by the course of a year or so, you should have those under control. They shouldn't be discursive thoughts anymore. You should know what they are. So this is all part of the elaboration of going through and understanding, learning, and having this at your ready. This is what we call the having perfect resource. Having perfect resource of what's happening in your intellect, what's happening in your mind, what's happening in the purification, so we don't have to keep doing it over and over again. So in the Charya Yoga or the Charya Tantra, we have empowerments that are deeper. So we may have a ripening empowerment for a particular deity. Like just say, we just had Avalokiteshvara. And that might have been just a ripening empowerment. It was an outer empowerment. It was called a water empowerment. And it's just to be able to start working on, those outer defilements, those outer confusions and so on. But now we find that we're going to have another empowerment on Avalokiteshvara Shenrezig, but this one is going to last a whole weekend. And it's going to be, it's going to be done in several different sections. And there's 3 different parts to the empowerment where different elements are brought to bear and so on. And each one is described in detail. So this is the elaboration of that type of an empowerment of that particular deity. And this is the inner part of doing that. And this is where we begin to make, greater connections, transformative. We're making our way, we're leading our way to the next step, which is the transformation part. But we're bringing all this together now in this purification part. And it's purifying all those other misconceptions, all that discursive thought. So we're taking more vows. We're taking, they're basically the same vows. I shouldn't confuse it with that. We're taking the same vows, but we're taking them more in a heartfelt way. We're recognizing what we're doing. We've been through it enough times now that we're recognizing what we're doing. And now we are recognizing more again, and I thought I was going to put this off till next week, but now I see my notes and it comes up now, is there are all these emotions that human beings have, this huge array of emotions. And it's said that when the Buddha Shakyamuni, the historical Buddha, when he, for 50 years, he roamed around northern India, going from village to village and so on, giving teachings and meeting people and talking with people, and people coming and asking him questions and telling him their problems and so on. He recognized that there's 84,000 emotions. How can we possibly be able to fathom 84,000 emotions in a single lifetime? Well, of course, the Buddha was the Buddha, so the Buddha can do some pretty incredible things. But for us ordinary beings, we find that these 84,000 emotions have been distilled down to, let's say it was these 20,000 emotions. And then those 20,000 emotions were distilled down to 10,000 emotions. And then they were distilled down to 5,000 and maybe to 200 and so on, till they got down to 5 poisons, 5 basic poisons that make up, through all their myriad combinations, all these 84,000 emotions. So 5 emotions, 5 poisons, we can certainly understand. We can understand what they are, why they happen, and how it is that we can overcome them. The what, the why, and the how. So the what they are is the emotion of ignorance. It's like the grand emotion. We don't know what we don't know, but we think we know. And that's the catch-22 of being a human being, our arrogance of thinking that we know. And if we don't know, we'll make up a story about it. And we can be very convincing about it to ourselves and to others. But to recognize that this ignorance is these delusions that we live in, these lies that we tell ourselves, these bavarications of reality that we manufacture for our own aggrandizement, for our own comfort, that we become delusional and we begin to believe these things. And we're so, this web of lies, this web of delusion, this ignorance that we live in is insidious. And it's the granddaddy of all these poisons. Then the next one would be desire. Desire are these attachments. Desire are these things that we want, all these possessions, all this life that we have, all this nature, all this is for us. All this is to make me look good. All this I want to have. I want to have this power. I desire this power. I desire this job. I desire this spouse. I desire this house. I desire this love affair. I desire these children, all these things that I desire and attach to. And I will go out and do crazy things to get these things. When I'm 16, 18 years old, and I want that car, the things that I will do to go take 2 jobs to save enough money to get that car. I finally get the down payment and I go to the showroom and I'm ordering the car and picking it out and so on. And the guy says, okay, well, what's your insurance company? And the 16-year-old kid says, insurance company? What are you talking about? He says, well, you got to have insurance for it. He said, what do you mean? He said, well, what happens if you get in an accident or something like that? He said, oh my goodness. Well, who do I call? So let me call my father. Hey, Dad, who do I call? Where do I get insurance? And then you call, your dad says, oh, well, I called Sam. Sam will fix you up. And you call Sam and he says, oh, well, that's going to cost you $3,000 a year for your insurance premiums. What? I just saved up enough money for a down payment for my car. Now I'm $3,000 short for the insurance. I didn't even think about that. But I want that car so bad. So I'm going to go do something to be able to get that insurance money and so on. But that's just an example of how connected we are to all these possessions, all these things that we want, and all this self-identification that goes with all of this. What we see when we look in the mirror, the clothes that we wear, the things that we say, the way in which we say them, all these different things are all part of our desire of our personality, who we are, who we think we are, and so on like that. So that's the cause of great emotions. When those things are taken away from us, how upset we can get. When we get that car, we finally got that car, and we go and we got to go to the supermarket, And I'm not going to park it right up front. Now I'm going to go all the way 2 parking lots away, and I'm going to park it out there underneath the light there so people can really see it and everything. And then I go into the supermarket, I do my shopping, I come back out, and I see somebody has taken a shopping cart and has rammed it right up the side of the car, the driver's side, and I got this ding and scratch in the driver's door. Oh my God. I don't want this car anymore. It's ruined. Take it away. I don't want this anymore. You know, my dream has been spoiled. And so how devastated you are and how emotional you might be. You might do more damage by taking that shopping cart and throwing it around the parking lot, and it bounces off and hits the roof of the car now because you're so upset and so mad at it. You know, men can do that. So the poison of desire, then the poison of hatred, the poison of anger, and how that can change things in a second. You can be such a good person, but in a moment of great anger, you do something really stupid and everything just falls apart. You know, it's good not to have any weapons around if you're prone to that kind of emotion. We see it happening all the time now. You know, I always talk about I don't keep a baseball bat anywhere near my computer because there's been times when I just wanted to hit that computer with a baseball bat. And if it was there, I might do it. So anger is very, very powerful. No matter what work we have done to put ourselves on a wholesome path, one moment of anger can wipe it all out. So those are the 3 major ones: are ignorance, desire, and anger or hatred. And the next one is jealousy or envy, and how insidious jealousy and envy is. It stays back in the back of the brain. And, you know, you saw somebody, you know, out with your one of your kids, one of your daughter or something like that. And you don't want them out with your daughter, or you see somebody talking to your wife or your husband, and who's that talking to them like that? Or my husband, he's got a phone call. He always takes that phone call. He goes out on the porch. Why does he do that? Who's he talking to? What's he saying? What's somebody saying to him? Jealousy comes up. I want what my neighbor has. My neighbor just got a brand new car. I want a car just like that. It's such a beautiful car and so on. I want that. Or somebody got a new job, or all these different things that work into jealousy and envy. And then the 5th one is greed and pride. Greed, I have these things and I want more of them. I've got this job. I'm making a really good amount of money. I've got money in the bank, but you know what? I want more of it. I got $1 billion, but now I want $2 billion. I can't spend $1 billion in my lifetime, but with $2 million, that's great. I'll think of myself as a much better person. And so whatever it is, we want more. If it's power, if it's money, if it's possessions, whatever it is, we have a tendency to want more. And the pridefulness that comes out of that. Oh, I've got $1 billion. Oh, I've got clothing that, you know, most people, you know, cost as much as my closet costs as much as some people's house, you know, the clothing that I have and so on. Or that I've got, you know, all these people that I support in my business, and how prideful I am about that and so on. So these 5 poisons, and again, we're going to talk about them a lot more, are what we need to examine in this purification stage, this inner purification stage, because these 5 poisons make up all these afflictive emotions that really kind of immobilize us, or they kind of paralyze us sometimes. Have you gotten so emotional at one time or another where you just feel paralyzed? You can't do anything. You can't move from your spot. You get depressed, or you get manicky, or any number of things that can happen, but you're not thinking clearly and so on. So by understanding these 5 poisons and seeing how they can work together and contemplating this, we just can't know these 5 poisons, but we've got to be able to recognize how they work in our everyday lives within ourselves, and then we can see how they're working with other people. So this is all part of that meditation process where you're sitting there in the 7-point posture. You're in this balanced position. No harm can come to you, no external harm. The only harm that is within yourself, and that is the emotions. So if we understand what causes these emotions, now we have a chance to be able to apply the antidotes to those emotions and diffuse them and cure ourselves of those emotions. So the next part of this elaboration of this inner understanding are what are the 5 antidotes to those 5 poisons. So the antidote to ignorance is education, teaching. If you become a teacher, you will be tested over and over and over again that what you are saying is, the veracity of it is correct. So we need to look at what education is, what that process is, and be honest with ourselves and be able to remove whatever delusions that we have about that I think I know what I'm talking about, or that I know what I'm talking about. As soon as you start saying that, you're in dangerous territory. So the antidote to ignorance is education. The antidote to desire is withdrawal, is meditation, is looking at what is going on around you, is contemplation, is taking a time out, examination, removing the stress of the obsession from your mind. You ever get, possessive, so possessive, you get obsessive. It can happen in jealousy, it can happen in anger, but you get that obsession. So in many cases, the thing to do is just to take a deep breath and count 10, So to overcome that obsession of passion, of desire, maybe taking a time out. Then the antidote to the hatred would be loving kindness, would be wisdom, would be taking a break there and being aware of your mindfulness. Where is your mind? What are you thinking about? Why are you upset? Usually when you get upset, when you get really angry, it's because of several things that have happened to this point, and then there's a breaking point. But all these other things were leading up. But all those things may have been building blocks to get, we're building blocks to get to this point. So we need to be mindful of those things. And then as we're recognizing things coming to bear, we got to say, I got to find a way to diffuse this now. Because if something else happens, then that's going to be another stone on this heap that is going to fall over eventually, and I'm going to be in big trouble. So mindfulness is the antidote to hatred. Then jealousy, the antidote to jealousy is accomplishment. A lot of our jealousy is because we're feeling paralyzed that we're not worthy enough to have that which it is that we are envious of, that we're jealous about. So if we engage in the accomplishment of working at that, we may find 2 things can happen. First is that we find that we can actually have what it is that we are envious of, that we are jealous of, that I am worthy of that. I can do that. But what happens more often than not is you find you really don't want that thing in the first place. And it comes with more baggage than you ever imagined. And then you get halfway to having it and you start realizing that, oh, I don't want that car because that insurance is way too much. Maybe I want a more modest car and the insurance is going to be a fraction of that. And I'll be happy. You know, I'll wait until I really can afford that car. I can't afford it now. Why should I get 3 jobs, 2 for the car and 1 for the insurance? Or maybe it's a house or whatever it is. Or maybe it's a lover, you know, whatever it is, the things that we spend crazy money on, crazy time on. So we find that through accomplishment, we can overcome that jealousy and envy. And then the last one was the greed and the pridefulness, that we overcome that through generosity. Instead of holding on to these things that we have been able to acquire, that we share them with others. That I don't need that $1 billion. I made $1 billion. There's a lot to be happy about and so on, but I can share that with others and not feel as though, you know, I'm hurting myself. I still am going to have a lot of pleasure. I'm still going to have a lot of things that I can do and so on. But meanwhile, I'm sharing my good fortune with others. And with that kind of an attitude, we overcome this pridefulness, oh, that I've got all this and I'm so important and all these people need me and I can do this and so on. I can do all that and share more of the rewards with all these other people and make people happier in that way. And I become happier and more have more peace of mind myself. So these are the 5 poisons. These are the 5 antidotes to the poisons. So this is part of the view of what it is for this purification of the what we call the Choya Tantra. So we do this with the inspiration of the Deity Yoga. The Deity, you know, this is the inner part of the Deity Yoga. So what we learned in the first part of the Kriya, now in the Choya, now we're really bringing into ourselves and we are becoming those deities. We are beginning the path of transformation through this purification. And we see that I'm becoming a much more likable person for myself and for others around me. So our conduct becomes one who is, we engage in more ritualized kind of practice to develop our mindfulness. You know, we may not need it all, completely forever, but that structure helps us to be able to discipline, to get ourselves through the purification and so on. So to be able to engage in ritual practices and so on is not a bad thing. That we have the right clothing, that we have respect for what it is that we're about to do and so on, and we don't go and disgrace ourselves or the people that we're with by being ostentatious in any way and distasteful and maybe even hurtful or causing people to have bad thoughts. So we take responsibility for that. Our diet, that we begin, we're taking care of our bodies better. We're eating better. We maybe do some fasting. Fasting can be very helpful to us, very therapeutic for us, very helpful to us, and it helps us to focus. Our body isn't churning on all that red meat or all those veggies and so on like that. We take a 24-hour fast, and our body just kind of settles down. And now all that energy that was going into the digestion process, we can put into our meditation, to our contemplation practice. And then chanting. We find that as part of the ritual, we find that we're engaging in the chanting. And what are we chanting? We're chanting who that deity is, what that deity is doing, what the activities of that deity is. And so it's helping us to be able to become the embodiment of that deity. We're harnessing our physical body with our intellectual mind to open up our spiritual body, our true body. So this chanting is another means of bringing this all together to help us to do that. So the results of this is that we develop what we call the 5 wisdoms. So I'll just go through them real quickly. We go over this many times. The wisdom that overcomes the ignorance is the all-pervading wisdom. That it's everywhere. There's no need to be ignorant. There's no need to be in darkness. That we can bring light everywhere we are, this all-pervading wisdom. Then the second, the wisdom of the overcoming desire is the wisdom of discriminating awareness. Desire was when we're becoming obsessive with our passions and our lusts and so on for things and so on like that. But if we can learn how to compartmentalize what it is that we need to be paying attention to, sometimes these mundane things do need to be taken care of, but they need to be taken care of tomorrow or next week. Right now, I need to be taking care of my spiritual studies and my spiritual practices right now. And those things will come later. Or maybe these things are really important right now. I really need to do those, and I can't rest my mind until I accomplish those. Let me do those things now, get rid of those mundane things, and then I can come and do my spiritual things. It's having the wisdom of discriminating awareness that allows us to make those judgments. So then the wisdom that overcomes hatred is the wisdom of mirror, what we call mirror-like wisdom. When we look into a mirror, what are we seeing? We're seeing an image of something that is being reflected. We're not seeing an actual object. We're just seeing a reflection of that. Our hatred is like that. Our anger is like that. Everything is just appearances that we conjure up. And that this anger is something that we conjure up through our emotions and through our misconceptions and so on like that. Just like looking into a mirror and thinking that it's real, seeing an image and thinking that it's real. So the mirror-like wisdom is what overcomes hatred. Now, we'll talk much more about this. I know that this is just covering the surface of it. And this bears to have a lot of contemplation and explanation about it. The next one is the wisdom of accomplishment. The all-accomplishing wisdom overcomes the jealousy and the envy. That if we can accomplish anything that we need to, and plus, it's already here. Everything is here that we need. It's just that we don't need as much as we think we do, or that we want. But, you know, the old saying goes, if you try sometimes, you get what you need. You may not get what you want, but you get what you need. So recognizing that there's a truth in that there's a reality in that there's a balance in that, and bringing that to bear in your life is the all-accomplishing wisdom, that you're accomplishing what it is that you really need. Then the last one is the wisdom of equanimity that overcomes greediness and pridefulness. The wisdom of equanimity, the wisdom of sameness, the wisdom of balance, of seeing that all these different things and so on have their place, but there's a balance in which they operate. And sometimes the balance might be 70-30, and sometimes it might be 30-70 and 60-40 on anything that you particularly focus on. So the result of the Charya yoga, this inner yoga, is being able to see all this, to be able to recognize these wisdoms and become wisdom beings yourself, that you're becoming more and more a complete human being on the path of perfection. So we're going through these stages. We go through the stage of renunciation. We go through the stage of purification, the outer and the inner. And then we talk next week, we go into the transformation path, where we talk about yoga tantra and so on like that. So we can see that there is this distinct pathway on which that we are following. And it's good to know where we are. This is more of a higher teaching than we normally would talk about in Buddhism 101, but the people who are with us have been through 101 a number of times. And to get this context, I think, in these terms, becomes very, very, very helpful. And as we go back into the basics will have more importance, and we'll be able to see how it spreads out, particularly as we get more and more now that we can do more practice together, because the COVID, is in a state where we can get together again sensibly and so on, so we can get together and practice together. And that's where things really begin to change. So thank you very much for paying attention tonight. I appreciate it. And I hope that some of it meant something. And if you have any questions or comments right now, we have a few minutes we can talk.
Lance, this is Zara.
Yes, sir.
I was listening, obviously, because I was commuting, but I really loved tonight. I loved the discussion. And I don't know if it was that it was so like a primer, but I really enjoyed it thoroughly, the requisite information. So I just wanted to thank you. Like, I really digested another layer of comprehension tonight. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. And Zara has been someone who's been with us for, what's it been, a couple of years now?
I feel like, I don't know, maybe Tom knows, I don't know, maybe like a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. You're right, Lance. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so I've been around for a long time.
I wanted to, Lance or Tom, I wanted to ask you all, or even Gary, do you all fast regularly? So Lance, you were saying something about these things, these habits we do to help us do the inner work. Are you all able to speak to that? Like, do you all have practice or habits, routines like that in your week or month?
Frankly, I haven't done it in quite a while, and I miss it. I would like to get back to it. We would do practices where we would fast for a weekend, and even skipping meals, or going a day without eating or something like that here at home. It's something I want to get back to. It's something that I know that helps. I've done it many, many, many times, and I know how helpful it is.
I fast regularly. In fact, I'm fasting right now. And I find that it helps focus my mind outside of the physical state of being hungry. Instead, I'm focused on my meditation and my shamanistic practices, and I find fasting to be very useful and very helpful. And I fast for about 3 days at a time, sometimes 7 days.
That's really big. Do you have a juice diet or liquid diet?
No, I just drink a lot of water.
Just water.
Water with electrolytes.
I see. Well, that's really good. That's very powerful.
It definitely is helpful.
Wow. Well, we're going to have to get you into a leadership role in our group and give us inspiration to do that. That's going to be great. Yeah,
Well,
that's
I
very
just want
good.
to thank you.
We'll
for
make you in charge of
including me.
fasting.
I just want to thank everyone for putting up with my question earlier, and thank you for letting me be here, even though this is newer to me. I'm learning a great deal, and I'm really appreciative to be here. So thank you, everyone. And
welcome.
thank you, Lance, for your teachings.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anybody else got a question or comment?
Great class tonight. Thank you so much, Lance.
Right. So we're going to continue on this. Anybody want to abort this? You feel like we're doing a good thing here?
Oh, it's wonderful.
Okay.
I like
Right.
it.
All right, good. All right. Well, we got, I think, another 4 classes to go. This was the 4th one, I think, 4 of 8. All right. So now we're going to turn to our dedication prayer by Lord Jignan Sumgun. So on page 21 of our books, and I'll get a book in the mail to Hatley so she can follow along with these. But in the meantime, please listen. So we recite this out loud, everybody together, but please keep your microphones off so that we don't feedback. Don't feedback. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate root of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shavaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mothers sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment, precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings from my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. Not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, ah, hum. Om, ah, hum. Om, ah, hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Okay.
Good night, everyone. I'll see you Thursday, Lance.
All right. Oh, good. Medicine Buddha. Very good. Thank you. And we'll be Saturday, we're going down to Dharma Surya, and Kempo is giving a very good teaching on Saturday. Well, Friday night, he's giving a very good teaching. If you got a chance, check your emails.
Okay.
Naked Perception. And on Saturday, we're going to be down at Dharma Surya, and we'll do practice down there in the afternoon, and we'll have it on Zoom if you can join us.
Wonderful. Thank you for the invitation.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Zara. Good night.
All
Good
right.
night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.
So Gary and Michael, if you can join us on Saturday, it'd be great. Tom, Hatley, if you can
I
join
plan
us on
on it.
Saturday, you'd be welcome to join us for our practice. Be very good.
I plan on being there.
Great. All
Is
right.
this in that general email you sent out earlier today with all the schedule for the month of June on it?
Yes,
Or is it a separate email?
that was from Dharma Surya Center.
Yes.
Yes, that was the email that they send out every week.
Okay, great.
So,
Hopefully if I get confused, because I was trying to find the Saturday practice, and I might have gotten confused about which Saturday, but I saw children's practice.
Right.
So if I get confused, can I contact you?
Sure. It's the second. Well, the way we do it is the second and the fourth Saturdays each month.
Oh, okay.
We're down at Dharma Surya for these practices.
Okay. I'll be there.
All right, and it says it in the email. I know it says it there. Where you saw the
Okay.
part with the kids, it's in that group right there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great
Thank
meeting you,
very-
Hadley. Mhm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
Nice one, Lance.
Thank you. Good to see you.